All right. The guys that did not participate were A.J. Dillon. Limited were Jair, Romeo Dobbs, Elton Jenkins, Aaron Jones, Isaiah McDuffie, Jonathan Owens, T.J. Slayton, Preston, and Christian Watson.
What would it mean to you? I mean, your offense has been rolling as it is, but to get all those guys back out there for a game, talking about Watson and Dobbs and the whole group.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. You can never have enough good players, and certainly I think not having them for quite some time, it creates some challenges in how do you insert them into the lineup and what exactly are you going to do with them, but that's a good problem to have to figure out.
How hard has it been to plan all season long with Watson in, Jones out, Jones in, Watson out,
It is what it is. It's part of the job, and it's our responsibility to figure it out, and sometimes we have, and other times we haven't done as good of a job. So, but I do think it speaks to the depth of this team that we've been able to, especially the back half of the season, have some production, and it's awesome to see other guys step up. Guys like Bo Melton, certainly Tucker's played a much bigger role. So that it's been a good problem in terms of we've really been able to develop and seen the development of many other guys.
Matt, does it take a certain type of mentality to win on the road in the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just I think it all comes back down to your process, your preparation, and making sure you got a good plan, and then going out there and executing it. But it's always a challenge, especially going down there. What do they won, like 16 games in a row or something like that? So they've been very good at home, and they're a very talented team with great coaches, and we're excited for the opportunity.
Aaron Jones has said that when he went down against the Chargers, he thought he was done for the year. He thought it was his ACL. What do you think of just how he's bounced back and what he's given you these last 3 games?
It's incredible. I thought the same. I mean, it looked pretty gruesome live. I know he was in a lot of pain. So when we got the news that it wasn't as bad as we initially thought, I mean, we were ecstatic about that. And he just brings his presence alone just uplifts everybody. Just his ability to get out there. Certainly we know the type of player he is, how explosive he is, and what he means to this team for years. But I think just everything he does, not only on the field, but off the field as well.
You said it's your job to game plan regardless of who you've got. But isn't game planning a lot different when you've got 33 versus when you don't, just because of everything he does? Like, how much easier or how different is it when you have him available?
You ever heard the old saying, show me a good coach and I'll show you some good players? Yeah, he's a great player, so he makes us better, no doubt about it. And it definitely opens up our playbook, I would say, and you can do some different things. And the versatility that he brings, certainly, and it's been, not having him and AJ for the majority of the season is taken a whole personnel grouping basically out of our offense. So it would be nice to have both those guys available to have that personnel grouping. But anytime you got great players, it definitely opens everything up.
With what's at stake, do you feel okay riding him these however many games you have left like you did last week, or if Dillon is available, will you cut back on Jones's work some?
Well, I think you got to be calculated with everything you do. I think just kind of the flow of the game last week allowed us to. He was fresh. There was long drives kind of on both sides of the ball, and that allowed him to recover. And so. Yeah, at this point of the season, it's whatever it takes, and whoever can go in there and give us the boost and allow us to continue to move the football, I think you got to roll that way.
Have you seen the play-action game improve just because of the way Aaron's been rolling?
Well, I think any time that you're running the football more effectively, it opens up the passing game, whether it's through play action or drop back. Just the threat of the run game will dictate some of the coverages that you may see, and can typically more people are going to load the box, and that creates opportunities on the perimeter.
Matt, what do you make of the history between these two franchises in pretty big moments back to the Ice Bowl as recently as the Jared Cook catch and then your visit in 2019, and the way your team and the Packers as a whole have played in that stadium historically?
Well, I'm kind of focused on the now and in the present, and I'm sure it's a great story. I mean, it's cool to revisit that stuff, but I mean, our focus is on whatever team is right in front of us. It just so happens to be the Dallas Cowboys, who is a great challenge. You know, they've got star players in every phase. I mean, I don't know how many all pros they had, but or Pro Bowl players, but there's quite a few on that roster. And again, I've got so much respect for Mike McCarthy, so much respect for Dan Quinn. You guys know what he means to me in my career. And John Fossil, I've worked with him in LA, and I think they got 3 great leaders right there. And when you couple that with the players they have, it's a pretty big task.
Matt, you guys have gone up against some pretty good pass rushers this year and done pretty well against them. What does Micah Parsons bring? How do you have to game plan around him?
Well, it's not only Micah. Micah's a freak show, a game wrecker, and you better know where he's at. And they do such a great job of moving him around, whether he can line up on the edge, he can line up at linebacker, at the 3 technique, at the shade. They use multiple personnel groupings, so they do a really good job of scheming you up and trying to create one-on-ones for him, especially in those pass rush situations. But I think the games they do up front, they've got multiple people that can get after the quarterback, and it's just watching the tape, it's like carnage in front of the quarterback all the time. And you know, I know Adam Durde, their D-line coach, pretty well, and I got a lot of respect for him. And yeah, they play with all those guys, play relentless. They play, you know, with great motors, and I think that's kind of a prerequisite for being a great pass rusher.
What do you make of what Deron Bland's been able to do? Diggs goes down and he goes and sets the pick 6 right.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive. I think those guys do a good job. Certainly well coached. They jump. They jump a lot of routes, but you don't see a lot of routes going over the top of their head. So I think that is just that speaks a lot of those guys, because you don't always see that. And all those guys on the back end, I think they got 26 takeaways on the season. They all have tremendous ball skills. So you got to be very precise with the rhythm and the timing of the passing game. You got to make sure the wideouts are coming off the ball with the correct pad level, and not kind of snitching on certain routes and concepts to allow them to make those types of plays.
When Musgrave went down, did you think you had in Tucker Kraft what you've gotten from him, or has he kind of gone above and beyond what you thought?
Well, we knew that it was going to be a process. We felt confident that Tucker was going to be a really good player in time. I think how fast, once he got those opportunities, that's a big time credit to Tucker. Just the work he puts in. He is a gym rat. He's in here all the time watching tape. He's always doing extra, and I think you're seeing the benefits of that. And I think John Dunn has done a great job in that room, but Tucker really has, he's taken that role and he's ran with it.
What are the biggest differences in play calling between Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore?
Well, I think each guy has their own flavor, but I think a lot of it is it goes back to their foundation, and I'm sure Mike was heavily involved with it, but each play caller kind of has their own rhythm with how they call plays.
How has Dan Quinn's defense evolved from when he was at Seattle and they played the same thing all the time to where they are now, and having Parsons? Has that kind of changed?
Oh, it's drastically different. It's drastically different. My time with them in Atlanta to where they are now, don't get me wrong, there's some coverage principles that are still somewhat similar, but he went from more of a spot droppy 3D scheme to a very matchy scheme. So I think it's been extremely impressive for what he's been able to do and kind of reinvent himself. I think DQ has always been of that growth mindset and always trying to find different ways to get better, and he's shown it. And he utilizes that personnel as good as anybody. And it's a very, very disruptive defense that knows how to get after the quarterback and create a lot of takeaways. And, if you're not ready, they can embarrass you.
You said growth there, and on Monday you were asked about growth from your team. You said that's kind of why we do this as coaches. Have you and your staff had to coach more educationally this year with all the young players, or not?
I don't know what that means.
Teaching?
I mean, that's what we are. I know we're teachers on a daily basis, but I would say that, there's certain things that maybe veteran players that you might take for granted that you can't take for granted with younger players, and making sure you just can never assume anything, especially I think the younger the player, there's going to be situations that they've never encountered, and it's kind of impossible to, forecast everything. But yeah, I think absolutely you try not to overcoach every situation, but I think that definitely there's probably a little bit more dialogue within every situation when you have a younger group. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Do you think there's an advantage, though, to being a younger team or the youngest team heading into the postseason?
Yeah, I think there's been some advantages, I think, throughout the course of the season in terms of just it's easy, or it's not easy, but I think it's hard to sometimes stay resilient when things are going bad, and you're hitting some adversity and some rough spots, especially if you've had a lot of success, but when you're kind of I don't want to say an underdog, but when you have something to prove, like, you don't let that get you down. And that's what I love about this group is there's so many guys in that locker room that despite what was going on around them, they were hungry to prove not only, I think, themselves, but everybody, that they do belong. And I think, I think that's a big reason why we were able to improve throughout the course of the season is they had that mentality and they care about one another. And I think that you have to have that. And, that's why it's a pleasure to come to work with these guys each and every day, because they do just have a great energy about them.
Matt, I know it's not just Jordan. You always say that, but you've been around Matt Ryan when he won the MVP. You obviously had Aaron for the 2 MVP years. You look at what Jordan's done the last 8 games. I mean, he had, 5 incompletions on Sunday, and 2 of them were near touchdowns. When you look, are you a little bit amazed at where he is after these last 8 games and excited about just, this is still a guy that's scratching the surface?
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him. I think it all starts with how he approaches the game and how he approaches life. He's awesome to come to work with each and every day. He puts the time and effort in. He's got laser focus. I think I've said it many times. I think Tom's done a hell of a job with him. It's a great room. The other guys in the room, and it's been really cool to watch him grow, develop, not only on the football field but just as a man as well.